And today we are starting chapter 10 and likely finishing it. This week there will be a quiz on Friday. And then next week there will be an exam on chapters, I don't know, whatever, 10, 11, 10, 9, and 8, I think. 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah. So, so this is an interesting topic. It's personality disorders. Some of what we're going to learn is a little alarming, and some of what we're going to learn is really interesting. So, the clinical features of personality disorders, right? These are chronicle.
I feel
Dig
like
deep.
you're about to read Narnia or something.
That's what I. They are chronic interpersonal. They have chronic interpersonal difficulties, meaning they don't get along with people, and they also have problems with their identity or their sense of self. So, the criteria in the DSM include enduring behavior patterns that are pervasive, meaning they and they're visible, they are present in every aspect of their life, and they're inflexible, as in they are. If they feel this way, they act this way. They always act this particular kind of way. They are stable and long in duration. They cause clinically significant distress or impairment in functioning. We're talking about everyday living, being able to take care of yourself, being able to get along with others, being able to stay safe, being not threatening to others. Now, in order to be diagnosed with a personality disorder, it has to manifest itself in at least two areas: the way a person's thinking, the way a person's feeling, the way they get along with others. And last one, and this is what I think is the most interesting one, is impulse control. What we're going to find is that when it comes to most personality disorders, impulsivity is the number one commonality among them. So we're going to go through the three different clusters of personality disorders, starting with cluster A. But first, we're going to say what the prevalence of personality um, disorders are. And between 10 and 12% of people meet the criteria for at least one personality disorder. Think about that. 10 to 12%. So we're saying slightly over 1 in 10 people have a personality disorder. And then you can see that cluster C and that would be the avoidant, dependent, obsessive compulsive is the most popular one. Popular is probably not the best way to describe it. Then cluster A, which is the paranoid, schizoid, schizotypal. And then the cluster B, which is the histrionic, narcissistic, antisocial, borderline. This is the one that I think is probably the most interesting. So there are challenges in personality disorder research, both in diagnosing and in studying the causes. Like, how does it develop? Right? So it's difficult to diagnose personality disorders because the diagnostic criteria aren't really sharply defined. And the categories are not mutually exclusive, meaning they overlap. And then lastly, the personality characteristics, they're dimensional. What does that mean? It means that if you have, let's say, openness to experience, that trait, and the opposite of it is resistant to experience, it's a dimension, it's a spectrum. You fall in some range of that particular personality trait. So it makes it very difficult when it's dimensional. You should definitely be familiar with Ocean, the basic 5 personality traits. So Ocean is openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. I gotta stop recording. Wait, I'm gonna pause. And we're back. Sorry, guys. Thank you for understanding. I don't know if I could think. Okay. Um, so let's start with again, back to where we were. Okay. Openness to experience means you're willing to try things, right? The opposite of that is resistant. resistance to new experience. So think of like resistance to new experience. These are the people, you know these people, and you might even be one of them. It's the chicken fingers and French fry people. You go to a restaurant, you don't order anything but chicken fingers and French fries. And then you have other people who are like, "What's escargot taste like? I think I'm gonna give that a shot."
Oh, it's the best. It's the best.
I've tried escargot
I
2 or 3
loved it.
times, at least
It was
twice.
like it was like really like buttery when I
Yeah,
had
yeah,
it.
that's just butter. That's just butter and garlic and maybe a little bit of lemon if they put that in there. But if you eat the ding dong snail, it tastes like mud, and there's nothing you can say that's going to convince me otherwise. I'm so tired of people saying it's so good because it's buttery. Everything tastes like butter if
I
it's smoking
probably
butter.
not gonna lie, I'd probably like it even without the butter because I'm weird like that. I like stuff like I like mussels and
Oh, I
everything
like,
else.
yep, me too. Oh, I'll eat anything. I'll try just about anything. Um,
Mm.
but I've tried escargot twice because like, oh, at least twice, could be 3 times. Because I said I tried them and I was like, I didn't like them. They're like, oh, come on, try it again. You got a bad batch or something. Tasted just like the first batch. Nasty. Okay. Next is conscientiousness, right? We're gonna spell ocean. Conscientiousness means you're aware of your surroundings. You're aware of the impacts your thoughts, feelings, and actions have on yourself and others. Okay, and then the opposite of that would be impulsivity, extroversion. What does that mean versus introversion or introverted? It means that your thoughts are kind of directed outside of you. It doesn't mean that you're outgoing per se. It just means that you're thinking of outside of you. And I'm not talking about being conscientious and understanding that your thoughts, feelings, and actions have an impact on others. I'm saying that they're reverted outside. It's diverted outside. Introverted means you're thinking about inside your head about you and your thoughts. Agreeableness means you get along with people, right? Agreeableness versus antagonistic is the opposite end of that one, right? So if you're antagonistic, you're just a you know mean-spirited person that just can't get along with anybody. And the last one is neuroticism. You know what that is? That's being neurotic. That means being anxious, right? And then the opposite of that is emotional stability. Personality disorders may represent extreme levels of some normal personality traits. So what does that mean? It means that we have normal personality traits like neuroticism, we have neuroticism, introversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, but it's like the extreme version of it, right? So you're at like the all the way at the end of the dimension or the spectrum. So if someone is highly neurotic, it'll lead to negative affectivity, meaning bad moods. If someone is extremely introverted, they'll become detached from others. If someone's extremely low in agreeableness, they're antagonistic. They're always picking fights. You know those people. Even if you don't know those people personally, you run into them all the time. They're just like, for no good reason, they're just starting fights with everybody and anybody. If you have low conscientiousness, meaning you're not either aware or you don't care what your thoughts, feelings, and actions have on others. Okay, will lead to disinhibition, meaning you're not inhibited, meaning you're impulsive. So, of course, there are difficulties in studying the causes of personality disorders because there's limited research. We just started looking at these in the 80s. And it's not really amenable. It's not even like really good to study. There's no good way, is what it means, to study personality disorders. There's no good way. So, what we've been doing so far is using retrospective approaches. We're asking people diagnosed with personality disorders, what was your upbringing like? What was tell us what happened when you were a child. Did you have good parents? Were they involved? What about your friends? What about your grades? Are you involved in things like athletics? All right, so now we're going to look at the actual clusters. Okay, so cluster A, paranoid, schizotypal, schizoid. Starting with paranoid personality disorder. This is where it becomes a little interesting to know that there are different kinds of personality disorders and what makes them unique. These people are suspicious and they don't trust others. They see hidden meaning in remarks. They see themselves as blameless. They're often on guard um, because they're like waiting for someone to attack them. They bear grudges. They're not usually psychotic, and they are in touch with reality. The prevalence of paranoid personality disorder in the community is about 1 to 2%, with equal numbers of men and women being affected. What could cause it? There's some modest genetic liability, but they also see, again, remember, these are retrospective accounts, these are retrospective approaches to identify that parental neglect or abuse and exposure to violent adults may have something to do with it. Now, on to schizoid personality disorder, impaired social relationships, the inability and the lack of desire to form attachments to others. They're loners. They're not good at expressing their feelings. They're generally apathetic, and that means they could care one way or the other. So they rarely experience strong emotions, and they have high levels of introversion, meaning they're always thinking in their head here, not about what's going on around them. This is more prevalent in males than females, and a little over 1%. Now, this is pretty heritable, about 55% heritable. Symptoms do precede psychotic illnesses in some cases. There's a link between schizoid personality and autism. The maladaptive underlying schemas, meaning what they expect the world to be like, what they think how things work, lead them to view themselves as self sufficient loners and view others as intrusive. Now, this is social relationship deficits. Okay, so they're going to see others as intrusive.
There's this girl that comes into the store where I work, and she's like a schizophrenic, and she doesn't take her meds, and she goes off the rails about stuff. You can't even like speak to her. She's like, yesterday she came in yelling about crack whores. She's like, them damn crack whores and
Mm.
everything else, and like, she's wow.
Hopefully, this person isn't dangerous.
She is. She yells at us all the time, and she walks her dog and like pulls her around. It's bad.
Mm.
Oh
Some people are scary like that, you know?
yeah, she's had the cops call her like multiple times.
Mm.
It's sad
It is sad. I was just going to say that's sad.
because she doesn't like. I know her father very well, and he comes in the store all the time, and she does not take her medication, and it's I feel so bad
Mm.
because she could be helped, but she's not. It sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. Schizotypal personality disorder. These people are excessively introverted. They have peculiar thought patterns. They have oddities of perception and speech that interfere with communication and social interaction, highly personalized and superstitious thinking. Let's get into some deeds. Um, the causal factors, the genetic abnormalities are similar to those with people diagnosed with schizophrenia. And so people diagnosed with schizophrenia, a lot of them, what they find is that particular parts of the brain are not big chunks, but small chunks are missing. In these, what are called ventricles in the brain, are enlarged, which means they're missing brain matter. Moderately heritable. The oddities of perception and speech that interfere with communication and social interaction, right? So, uh, again, they don't speak well, they don't speak clearly, they jumble, right? And so people are confused. Now on to cluster B, starting with histrionic, self dramatization. What are you doing there, Tirza? What was that? Is
I was
it
trying to write.
you're trying to what?
I was trying to write fast.
Oh, okay. I thought you were trying to mimic drama, like, oh, woe is me. They're over concerned with their attractiveness. They're irritable and they have temper outbursts if attention seeking is frustrated, meaning frustration means blocked, right? So if they don't get the attention that they seek, they get upset, they have fits. The prevalence of histrionic personality disorder in the general population is about 1%. Some believe rates of the disorder may be decreasing. Some studies suggest that the disorder occurs more often in women than men, but recent careful analysis of the issue suggests that the higher prevalence of histrionic personality in women actually would not be predicted based on the known sex differences in the personality traits prominent in the disorder. So what they're saying is, yeah, maybe women are diagnosed, but that doesn't make sense because if you look at how these characteristics or traits are identified in the DSM, they actually show less of them. So some causal factors. It's highly comorbid with borderline, antisocial, narcissistic, and dependent personality disorder diagnoses. And again, there's some genetic links to it also, just as is with antisocial personality disorder. Narcissistic personality disorder, grandiosity. They think they're the bomb.com. Again, they're preoccupied with receiving attention. They're self promoting. They don't care for others, so they lack empathy. They're hypercritical and retaliatory. Now, there are two subgroups, the grandiose, which they have these feelings of, I'm the bomb. They're aggressive and they're dominant seeking. Then there's the vulnerable type. They're fragile and they have an unstable sense of self esteem. They're arrogant, condescending, and that's a facade for the intense shame and hypersensitivity to rejection and criticism. So, what could cause it? The grandiose, parental overvaluation. Vulnerable, where they experience emotional, physical, or sexual abuse, as well as parenting styles characterized as intrusive, controlling, and cold. So, really, the grandiose parental overvaluation meaning, those parents that think their kids are the best in everything they do. Yeah. So what is it? What does this mean? What are we talking about here? They're saying that narcissistic personality disorder, a lot of it is how we're raised, right? Parents give you too much attention or too much of the wrong kind of attention. You can't really give your kid too much attention, right? But if you give them too much of the wrong attention, right?
Would that be ideal to stop, like if you see that happening? I'm just saying, like, okay. Use my brother for an example. So, like, I think my brother got a lot of praise just because I don't know if it's like this in, like, other households, but I grew up in a more of an Asian household, so the males were, like, kind of more glorified, really, for us
Yep.
in mine. So
Yep.
I think that was stopped pretty quick for my brother when we moved. And I think it did help him a lot because I remember he used to have like really bad like tantrums when he didn't get his way. I don't know if that like I don't know. He's back with my dad, so I don't know if like it will still continue or I don't know if that makes sense, but
it does. It absolutely does. Again, you have to think about what are the commonalities, the biggest commonalities with people with personality disorders, and it's going to be that it gets in the way of normal functioning, it gets in the way of relationships, it causes self frustration or emotional disturbances, and it causes cognitive disturbances like thinking, like they don't think normal.
yeah, so if he didn't get like something right during like his homework, he would probably like get really upset, like get overwhelmed, like because he just couldn't get it right
Mm.
from
How old is
being
your
like
brother?
well now I think he's 11 now, but this was like when he was like 9 or something. He's better.
Most personality disorders are diagnosed in, like, for example, antisocial personality disorder. You have to be at least 18 years old to be diagnosed with it. So what does that mean? Well, they have other disorders that they can diagnose children with. It could be just like you said, based on his upbringing. Maybe he's just spoiled,
Right.
and as a result, I mean, it could be. This is, I mean, what was the prevalence of this puppy? Does it say? No, but it's got to be somewhere around 1 or 2%. So I mean, it's not likely, you know. But yeah.
Not gonna lie, the narcissistic personality disorder sounds like my ex.
Yeah, right. I mean, when I go through these, I kind of feel like like each one of us, when we go through this, we're all going to see a little bit of ourselves in
Yeah,
what.
I definitely do.
Well, yeah, wait until we get to the end, then you can make a better, because a lot of people, when they read about some of these, they'll go, "Oh, wait, that is totally me." Okay. Um, I think I kind of recognize with, and this sounds terrible, a little bit of the narcissistic. Um, I feel like, I feel like I, I, I mean, we're supposed to feel like we're the bomb, right? But I feel like maybe I feel like a little bit too much of it. I don't know.
Well, you are the bomb, so.
Well, thank you. I am always looking for attention. This is why I like this job. Self-promoting, I don't do. I do the opposite for the most part. I'll be like self-condescending. Like I'll use that self-defamation humor. And
Mhm.
lack of empathy, I really don't think I have lack of empathy. I don't know. I think I am hypercritical, but I'm
I'm
not.
definitely with the attention one right there.
Yeah, so maybe not. I don't know. Okay. Antisocial. Persistently disregard and violate others' rights. The inability to follow approved models of behavior. They lie. They manipulate others without experiencing shame. And they have a history of conduct problems as a child. So, what could cause these things? Genes. It's moderately heritable. Low family income. Inner city living. Poor supervision by parents. Having a young mother. Being raised in a single parent family. Conflict between parents, having a delinquent sibling, neglect, large family size, harsh discipline from parents, delinquent peers, physical or sexual abuse, and various academic or social experiences. So everything in the kitchen sink could have a contribution to this. I read it. Who sent that email? To whom? Thank you. So also it's been shown low MAOA gene activity can lead to aggressive behavior. What does that mean? It means that monoamine oxidase is an enzyme that is supposed to help regulate our dopamine and serotonin levels, keep them at a certain level. And if it's not working right, this receptor gene, then as a result, it's a chemical imbalance. There's too much of it, essentially. All right. Borderline personality disorder. See how I put in red impulsiveness, inappropriate anger, affective instability, meaning emotional instability, drastic mood shifts, chronic feelings of boredom, and attempts at self mutilation or suicide. It tends to be comorbid with both internalizing disorders such as mood and anxiety, as well as externalizing disorders such as substance use disorders, and with personality disorders like schizotypal, narcissistic, and dependent disorders. Um, Genes, neurotransmitters, traumatic events. I won't ask you what the comorbidity is. I put a lot of this stuff in just for interest's sake. Okay, so looking at the diathesis, stress. Diathesis is your individual vulnerability. Stress is a life circumstance kind of thing. So here we have the genetic and biological vulnerabilities. This is your diathesis here. So could lead to affective instability and impulsivity. Plus, now you have stress. Could be something traumatic, parental psychopathology and or failure, meaning your parents are psychopaths or they just failure to parent you. Maybe one of them died or they rejected you. Okay. This could lead to dysphoria, meaning unhappiness, and emotional lability, meaning this when something's labile, it means it's moving, uh, shifting. It could lead to impulsive acting out and chaotic interpersonal relationships. Both of these then could feed, and these feed each other, and both of these then could feed to borderline personality disorder. So what it's saying is all these different things can contribute to the development of borderline personality disorder. So you start with the predisposition, then you have the bad environment or the traumatic thing or the stressful thing, and then you have that leads to the feelings. Feelings feed itself, and eventually to a personality disorder, borderline. Cluster C now. This is where I think cluster C is where most people say, "Oh yeah, that's me." Okay. Hypersensitivity to rejection or social derogation. They're self-conscious and self-critical. They're shy. They're insecure in social interactions, and they're insecure in initiating relationships. Dependent personality disorder. They have difficulty in separating in relationships. They don't like being alone. The subordination of their needs to keep others involved in a relationship. I mean, they'll give up what they need to keep others with them. And they are indecisive. Obsessive compulsive personality disorder. They don't have true obsessions or compulsive rituals, as is the case with obsessive compulsive disorder, though. But they have excessive concerns with order, rules, and trivial details. They're perfectionistic. They lack expressiveness and warmth, and they have difficulty in relaxing and having fun. So, what do you think is our emphasis in our culture here in the United States? Is our emphasis on impulse gratification, instant solutions, and pain-free benefits leading more people to develop self-centered lifestyles that we can see in more extreme forms in personality disorders? Meaning, is our culture contributing this? You want this, you got it right now. Is that culture contributing to the development of and more extreme forms of these personality disorders?
I think, yeah, I think yes. But also, like, not everyone receives that same, like,
No, you're right.
it's not the same on the spectrum. So I feel like more people would probably,
Good. So there again, you're distinguishing between the haves and the have-nots, and as a result, could have an impact more on the haves than the have-nots. Yeah, that makes sense to me too. Sociocultural factors that contribute to personality disorders are not well understood. Incidents and particular features vary somewhat with time and place. Changes in cultures, priorities, and activities may influence the development of personality disorders. So, narcissistic personality disorder is more common in Western, our cultures. Histrionic is less common in Asian cultures and more common in Hispanic. Right? These are the ones that are concerned with attractiveness. These are the ones that are concerned with attention. Borderline is more common among Hispanic Americans than African Americans or Caucasians. And schizotypal personality disorder is more common among African Americans than Caucasians. So now, treatment and outcomes for personality disorders. Here are the difficulties. Uh, we don't know what treatment works best for what. We have plans, but for different personality disorders, you have different goals. Even within the same personality, one therapist or clinician might have a goal to achieve something a different way than another. The person who's seeking help, or I should say, the person who's getting help, they may not be the one seeking it, so they may be resistant to receiving treatment. And then lastly, trying to get them to make relationships, to form relationships. It's very challenging. Like when Chloe was talking about that woman who's walking her dog and whatnot, yelling and all that, having her treated, trying to form relationships with other people, friendships, it's very difficult.
I feel like it would also be really hard to hear that about yourself,
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
you don't think there's anything wrong with you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
That would mess me up.
right. Personality disorders represent relatively enduring, pervasive, and inflexible patterns of behavior. So enduring meaning it lasts a long time, pervasive as in it's everywhere, every aspect of your life, and inflexible meaning it's consistent in how it appears. Let's see. Possible goals of therapy: to reduce subjective distress. That means personal distress. To reduce any kind of like emotional or cognitive maladies, I guess you could say. You want to change specific dysfunctional behaviors, or maybe you want to change whole patterns of behavior or the entire structure of the personality itself. Many people with personality disorders come to therapy only at the request of someone else. Many people with personality disorders, especially those at cluster A or B, will have difficulty forming a therapeutic relationship. That means in order to get help and to receive it effectively, you have to build that therapeutic bond. It's called the therapeutic alliance. And people, one of the things that we keep seeing is that people with personality disorders have interpersonal issues. So that therapeutic alliance is very hard to acquire and maintain. So what I want you to know is that there are 3 different types. You know this already. For treatment, there's the inpatient where you are, you live there. There's the outpatient where you live home, but you go to these things, these meetings or these therapy sessions. And then there's partial hospitalization where maybe you go into the hospital on weekends or weekdays and now out on weekends. We could use cognitive therapy where you're having the person monitor automatic thoughts that are negative, perhaps, right? These stylistic ways of thinking that are like helpless, hopeless, right? And challenging their faulty logic and assigning behavioral tasks. So treating borderline personality disorder could use antidepressants, dialectical behavior therapy, which we're going to cover in the next slide, transference focused therapy, where they want the individual, the client, to transfer their, how do I describe this? If they have a problem with their parent, they want to be able to say, they want the client to transfer it onto the therapist. So they can deal with it in real time as though the therapist, who's non-threatening, but maybe the parent is or was, they can deal with those issues while seeing the therapist as the parent or the abuser or the person neglected. Mentalization, imagining, preparing mentally. So dialectical behavior therapy. The main goals are to teach people how to live in the moment, cope healthily with stress, regulate their emotions, and improve relationships with others. Just going to, all right, well, we'll just do it. So the dialectical behavior therapy developed by Linehan combines individual and group components as well as phone coaching. It's a form of cognitive and behavioral treatment that is problem focused and based on a clear hierarchy of goals. You prioritize decreasing suicidal and self-injurious behaviors and increasing coping skills. The patients will learn interpersonal effectiveness, emotional regulation, and distress tolerance skills. The phone coaching will help the patient identify and change problematic behavior patterns and apply newly learned skills effectively. Phone coaching is in the now, though. So you don't have to report the next time you have a therapy session, you have a problem right now. Now you call the therapist. Now you are getting on the phone. Now you are dealing with the problem. Oh, so for schizotypal personality disorder, antipsychotics or antidepressants. For avoidant personality disorder, right? These are the shy one people, right? Cognitive behavioral treatment, antidepressants. Psychopathology or psychopathy, right? We used to be called sociopathic personality. So people always wonder, what's the difference between a sociopath and a psychopath? Nothing. They're the same thing. The prevalence is unknown, and antisocial personality disorder has some overlap, but not the same. Now remember, antisocial personality disorder, they're essentially people who are breaking the law, who are impulsive, lack empathy. So what are the dimensions, we'll say, or characteristics of psychopathy, of a psychopath? They have interpersonal characteristics. They are superficial, they're charming, and they lie. They have emotional or affective characteristics. They don't experience guilt or regret or empathy. They have lifestyle differences. They have a need for stimulation. They're impulsive and they're parasitic, meaning they will take at the cost of someone else. They're antisocial. They have poor behavior controls. They break the law. What do they have in common between psychopath and antisocial? They have inadequate conscience development. They're irresponsible, impulsive, and they have an ability to impress and exploit others. Again, we have genes playing a role in psychopaths. They have low levels of fear in compared to conditioning I'm sorry, they have impaired conditioning of fear. They have more general emotional deficits. They seem to have experienced parental loss or rejection. What was that? Mm, they have difficulty learning to regulate their emotions. They have high levels of emotional reactivity, right? They're aggressive. Okay. They exhibit fearlessness, low anxiety, poor conscience, premeditated aggression. Oh, never mind. I kept hearing some noise and I didn't know what it was. I thought it was like a mouse in the ceiling. It's my wife upstairs typing on a keyboard. Okay. So treatments and outcomes in psychopathic personality. Cognitive behavioral treatment does offer some promise, but it's difficult because they're going to be resistant to it. I'm going to stop sharing. Now, does anyone have any questions?
No.
Okay, no class on Thursday. Okay. Okay, tears. All right. So I will see some of you in the next class, and some of you I won't. Some of you I'll see on Tuesday. Actually, I'll see all of you on Thursday, rather. Just not in this class. Okay.